My father publicly disowned me. Not in a text. Not in private. At his own retirement dinner. On a live microphone. In front of 300 people. I'm his biological son. I spent 3 years building his legacy for him. 12 drafts, hundreds of hours, everything I had. And that night, he looked straight at me, smiled for the cameras, and said, "Only the children who made me proud are truly mine. You can leave." The room went silent. 300 people watched it happen. Nobody moved. Nobody said a word. And neither did I. I stood up to walk out. My wife grabbed my arm. She didn't look scared. She didn't look angry. She looked like someone who had been waiting for exactly this moment. She leaned in and whispered, "Don't move. We're not here to beg for a seat. We're here to pull the floor from under him." I had no idea what she meant. She had been quietly building something for 6 months. Something my father never saw coming. Something he had actually signed himself. 40 minutes later, my father lost his foundation. His $6 million deal gone. His 30-year reputation collapsed. His hand-picked successor exposed for fraud. All of it in the same ballroom, on the same live stream, in front of the same 300 people. He built his whole career on the idea that I wasn't worth his name. That night, he found out I was the only reason any of it existed in the first place. This is that story, and I promise you, every single word of it is true. My name is Duskvale, and I want to be upfront with you. This story is uncomfortable. Not because it's dramatic, because it's true. My father, Dr. Bennett Vale, spent 30 years building one of the most respected education foundations in the Pacific Northwest. His name was on buildings. His face was on charity posters. He gave speeches about legacy, integrity, and what it means to invest in the next generation. He just never applied any of that to me. I'm a high school science teacher. I know. For the son of Dr. Bennett Vale, that's practically an insult. He wanted a lawyer, a CO, a boardroom heir. Instead, he got someone who chose students over status. For years, I told myself it was fine. I told myself he'd come around. 3 years ago, he made me a promise. He sat me down, just the two of us, and said, "When I retire, you'll carry the foundation forward. You've earned it." I believed him. I spent the next 3 years building a proposal from scratch. 12 drafts, hundreds of hours. A program called the Classroom Equity Project. Scholarships for underserved schools. Training programs for underpaid teachers. Funding for classrooms that ran on nothing but hope and duct tape. I thought I was building his legacy. I didn't know I was building my own weapon. The night it all collapsed was the night of his retirement gala. Seattle was drenched in rain. By the time my wife, Era, and I arrived at the Rose Hill Grand Ballroom, my shoes were soaked. My chest was already tight. I told myself, just get through tonight. I had no idea what Era already knew. We walked in. The room was gold and crystal, chandeliers, cameras, sponsors. A banner overhead, Vail Education Trust and Laminitech Foundation. $6 million commitment. I scanned the VIP table, the one right in front of the cameras. My name wasn't there. The card next to my father's. It read, Sloan Mercer. My stepmother Clarice's daughter. The rising corporate attorney. The woman my father had never once called family in front of me. I looked at Clarice. She smiled, the kind of smile that knows exactly what it's doing. "You'll find your name at table 19, dear. We thought you'd be more comfortable with the other educators. I want you to really feel that word. Comfortable." Table 19 was behind a pillar. In the back, wilted flowers, cheaper linen. An Era, without a single change in expression, pulled out her phone, typed 3 words, and someone on the other side replied instantly. I asked her what she was doing. She said, "Not yet." We sat at table 19. Around us, 5 teachers. Real ones. Miss Chen from math. Mr. Alvarez from history. People who built their lives around students who would never give them awards. Miss Chen leaned over to me. "You were supposed to be on the board. Bennett promised you that seat. I nodded, jaw tight. 3 years ago. Yes. Mr. Alvarez let out a dry laugh. They don't want mission at Vale. They want money. Teachers don't look good in press photos. Across the ballroom, Clarice was parading Sloane from camera to camera, my father's hand on her shoulder, introducing her as the next generation of leadership. I watched them, and something inside me cracked, quietly. Then Era excused herself. Phone pressed to her ear. I heard only fragments, check clause 7.3 and 12.1. I didn't know what that meant. The tone in her voice wasn't nervous. It was surgical. The lights dimmed. My father took the stage. He was everything the world called excellence. Tall, composed, practiced. A man who'd spent decades perfecting the art of appearing noble. Tonight marks 30 years of serving education, he said, voice smooth as a marble floor. Applause. Chandelier light. Camera zooming. And as I reflect on my life's work, I've realized something. He paused. The kind of pause that performers use when they want silence. To do the heavy lifting. Only the children who made me proud are truly mine. The audience laughed. I didn't. Then his eyes found me. Not sweeping the room. Not accidentally. Deliberately. And he said it again. Quieter this time. More personal. More poisoned. You can leave. The room went still. Forks froze midair. 300 people held their breath, waiting to see if this was a joke. It wasn't. I stood up, chair scraping the floor like a protest. My throat locked. My chest was on fire. And then, without a single word, Era stood too. She didn't look at my father. She looked at her phone, typed something fast, slipped it into her clutch, and whispered 2 words I didn't understand yet. Not yet. From across the room, a man named Dr. Patel, a senior board member, looked down at his phone and frowned. I didn't know it then, but he had just received the first message that was about to detonate everything. The lights shifted. The LED wall behind the stage blazed white. Vale Education Trust. Leadership announcement. I already knew what was coming. I'd known for weeks, honestly. The way Clarice smiled when she looked past me. The way my father stopped returning my calls about the proposal. Please welcome the new successor of the Vale Education Trust, Sloane Mercer. The applause was deafening. People stood. The floor actually trembled. Sloane rose, hair behind her ear, perfect posture, practiced smile. She spoke for 10 minutes. Legal innovation, corporate partnerships, strategic growth. She never once said the word teacher, never mentioned a student. Not one classroom, not one child. She was erasing everything I'd built, and the audience was applauding her for it. I sat completely still. My name hadn't been spoken once. 3 years of proposals. Ignored. 12 drafts. Buried. 1 promise. Broken. Eris sat beside me. Still. Not clapping. Just watching the stage and checking her watch. Then Clarice leaned toward the MC and whispered something. He nodded. Shuffled his cards. I caught just enough of it. Pushed the teacher recognition segment to the end. Of course. The program moved straight to the Laminitech sponsor presentation. The logo pulsed across the wall, giant, white, impressive, and something cold hit me. I had seen that logo before. On Era's laptop, weeks ago. She'd said she was helping with grant reviews. I hadn't asked more. Maybe I should have. I stood up. Couldn't stay seated anymore. Clarice materialized in front of me like she'd been waiting. Don't, she hissed. This is a family moment. I'm family, aren't I? I said. Or is that conditional now? Her smile twitched. Sloane looked down from the stage. Smug. Some people, she said under her breath, should learn to accept their place. I took one more step forward. And Era's hand landed on my arm. Calm. Firm. We're not asking for a seat, she said quietly. We're reading a contract. I looked at her. She looked at Dr. Patel. He was already scrolling through his phone, eyes narrowing, face shifting into something I'd never seen on a board member before. Discomfort. I still didn't understand what was happening. But I was about to, because Era was already walking toward the stage. The ballroom went quiet in that particular way. That rooms go quiet when something unexpected happens. Not polite silence, but the silence of 300 people forgetting to breathe. Era climbed the steps. Steady, shoulders back. Under the stage lights, she looked like she'd been born for exactly this. "Before this appointment becomes official," she said, her voice carrying through the whole room without effort, "the room should be aware of the terms of the contract. Your foundation signed with Luminitech." My father blinked. Clause 7.3 outlines a clear requirement. Active educator representation on the board. All appointments must have written sponsor approval. Before any public announcement, silence, the kind that hums before a storm. My father's smile hardened. "Mrs. Vale, I don't recall inviting you to comment on internal decisions." She didn't flinch. "Then perhaps you should reread the agreement you signed 6 months ago." Dr. Patel stepped forward. Phone raised. "She's correct. I have the document. This clause is binding. Both parties signed it." My father's composure cracked. Not completely, not yet, but enough that you could see it happening in real time. He turned to me, voice tight, eyes furious. "You did this. You brought her in here to humiliate me." I met his stare, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of it. "No, Dad." I said it quietly. "You did that all by yourself." The LED screen behind the stage flickered, then went black. When it blinked back on, a new line of text scrolled across it. Bold, white, unmissable. Contract Clause 7.3, Active Educator Requirement. Gas swept the room. Dr. Patel began reading aloud. His voice was almost apologetic, but his words were absolute. Any appointment to the board must include at least one current classroom educator and requires written sponsor approval before announcement. Failure to comply constitutes immediate breach of contract. The silence that followed wasn't polite anymore. It was judgment. My father's hand trembled on his champagne glass. Clarice turned white. Sloane's eyes darted between them, panic replacing poise. And then Eris said 5 words. That made the entire room stop. "I signed that contract myself." My father stared at her. "What are you saying?" She looked straight at him. "I'm saying you should know who your partners are before you decide to humiliate them." She paused. "My name is Era Vale. I am the founder and CEO of Luminitech Foundation." For 3 full seconds, the room stopped breathing. A champagne glass shattered somewhere behind me. "Clarice's." Dr. Patel confirmed it without hesitation. "She's telling the truth. Her foundation's documents list her as the primary signatory. This partnership exists because of her." My father lunged forward. "You came here to destroy me." "No," Eris said, quietly. "Finally. You did that when you forgot what this foundation was built for." She nodded toward the technician. The screen changed again. This time an email thread. Sloane's name in the header. Era, read it aloud. "We'll announce first. They're just a sponsor. They don't have real authority." The room murmured like low thunder. Dr. Patel spoke. "That statement alone constitutes a breach under Section 12.1. The partnership is void." But Era wasn't done. One more slide. 2 documents side by side. One, Sloane's Leadership Advancement Program. The other, my Classroom Equity Project. 40%, Era said calmly. "That's how much of his proposal your daughter copied." Word for word. Sloane's face drained of color. "We only referenced." "This is plagiarism," Dr. Patel interrupted quietly, "and a direct violation of the funding ethics clause." The hashtag Veil scandal was already trending. I could see it scrolling on a monitor near the exit. And in the middle of all that noise, I walked to the microphone. 12 years ago, I became a teacher. My father said I was wasting my potential. 3 years ago, he promised me a seat at this table, then gave it to someone else without a word. Tonight, I'm not here for revenge. I just want to say this clearly. What you look down on still matters. The teachers at table 19, behind the pillar, with the wilted flowers and the cheap linen. They are the reason any of this exists. Dr. Patel cleared his throat. For the record, one more thing. He looked directly at my father. The proposal that brought Luminatech to fund Vail Foundation, the one that generated this $6 million sponsorship, it was the Classroom Equity Project. Written by your son. The sound that swept the room wasn't applause. It was something older and more honest. Recognition. My father sank into his chair. The microphone was no longer his. Dr. Patel's final announcement was brief. Effective immediately. Luminatech Foundation withdraws its $6 million sponsorship from the Vail Education Trust. The trust is dissolved. My father's 30-year empire. Gone. Not by scandal. Not by enemies. By a contract clause. And the truth. Era took my hand. We don't need their table, she said. We build our own. 6 weeks later we did. The Rose Hill Grand Ballroom, the same room, where my father told me to leave, hosted the first board meeting of the Vail Renewal Fund, run entirely by active educators. 120 schools. 300 teachers. Real funding. Real change. At our first press event, I stood at a podium and said, if they won't give you a seat at the main table, build your own. On the wall behind me hung a plank of reclaimed wood, engraved with the words, for every teacher who was told they were just a teacher. The fallout was fast. My father, forced into retirement. Clarice left Seattle. Sloane's firm suspended her pending the plagiarism review. My phone rang one morning. It was him. His voice was smaller than I'd ever heard it. You won, he said. Are you happy now? I thought about it for a moment. I didn't win, Dad. I just stopped losing. He asked to meet. Said he wanted to apologize. I told him what it would take. 6 months of therapy. And a public apology to the teaching community. He hung up. I stood there for a long time and realized I wasn't angry anymore. Just done. During our next board meeting, I walked to the corner of the room where table 19 used to stand. We'd kept it empty on purpose. We'll keep this here, I told the room, so we never forget where change begins. Dr. Patel walked over, smiled. Then this corner is the command center. The room filled with laughter. The kind that only comes after something real. Later, a staffer handed me an envelope. Inside, a handwritten note. You told me different doesn't mean less. I believed you. I'm studying to be a teacher. I tried to read it aloud. Couldn't finish. That night, Era asked, if your father calls again. I smiled. I'll answer. I don't need him to admit anything anymore. I already did. She reached for my hand. That's freedom. We turned off the lights. And the golden letters of his name, still faintly visible on the wall behind the stage, flickered and faded. His empire was gone. Ours had just begun. And somewhere, right now, there's a kid in a classroom with a teacher who almost quit, who stayed because someone told them their work mattered. If you've ever been told you're not enough, stay. Your table is coming. If this story hit you somewhere real, drop a comment. I read every one. And subscribe because the next story is even harder to believe. But every word of it is true.